whereabouts came to light. Cody and some of Elle's other friends tried bringing awareness to her disappearance by using social media platforms. They also posted flyers all around the Bombay Beach area, but nothing came of it. No one came forward claiming to have seen Elle. The search continued until October 9, 2021, when investigators found human remains in a wreckage terrain of Yucca Valley. On October 28, 2021, it was confirmed that the remains found did indeed belong to Elle. The cause and manner of her passing have not been released. As of this recording in January of 2022, Lawrence Cho's case has no further updates. Next, it brings us to the disappearance of Patrick Lynn Wells. 38-year-old Patrick Wells disappeared on June 5, 2021 from Joshua Tree National Park. Park spokesperson Jenny Alberg stated that Patrick was last seen on June 5th.
Someone hacked the menu board to display obscene messages about our colleague, Mr. Blevins. Is this the most advanced genealogical project ever undertaken, or a junior high locker room?
He's described as a Caucasian male, 5 feet 10 inches tall, weighing about 197 pounds. He has brown hair and brown eyes, as well as a dragon and a United States Marine Corps insignia tattoo on his arms. It is believed he was wearing a white t-shirt, blue jeans, and either tennis shoes or black work boots at the time of his disappearance. Park officials found Patrick's truck in the Indian Cove parking lot in the Rattlesnake Canyon area on the day he was reported missing. Joshua Tree National Park began investigating and organizing hiking area of Joshua Tree. Soon after, the coroner confirmed the remains belonged to Patrick, though no cause of his passing was listed. As of January 19, 2021, the date of this recording, there have been no further updates on the Patrick Wells case. Next, we have Erica Ashley Lloyd. 37-year-old Erica Lloyd was last seen on June 14, 2020, at her home in Walnut Creek, San Bernardino County, California.
I ask again,
She
as
told her
I've
family
asked
she was
1,000
going on a camping trip
times.
to Joshua Tree National Park. Erica's mom, Ruth, said
Speak
she was
to me.
just trying to make ends meet, like so many others during the pandemic.
What more would you have me do?
Erica owned a salon called Blue in Alamo, California. While
Is there
when
no
mandatory
prayer that will
closures
reach
and
you?
other restrictions came
No
about,
mark that will break your
implemented,
bonds.
Erica's salon closed down and didn't reopen. The trip to Joshua Tree was to be a chance for her to get away from all the negativity.
I can't help you if you won't speak.
Erica's described as 5 foot 3 inches tall, 125
Whisper
pounds,
is all I
and has
ask.
brown hair and blue eyes.
Guide me.
According to Erica's roommate, she said she was planning to meet other people in Joshua Tree. However, the identities of those people she was supposedly planning to meet are still a mystery.
No.
And it's unclear
How?
if she did indeed meet up with anyone.
How did you get
after
here?
leaving home
The way
on
was
June
sealed by the
14th.
spirit herself.
When Erica didn't return and couldn't be reached, her family reported her missing on June 17th. Authorities found Erica's car, a black 2006 Honda
I can show
Accord,
you.
abandoned
Yes,
on
show me.
Shelton Road, north of State Route 62, just
Please.
east of the 29 Palms area. Both the front and rear windshields were broken, and the car appeared to be involved in a sand berm accident, which mangled the K-frame of the car and deployed the airbag. Even so, California Highway Patrol Officer Casey Simmons said investigators found no evidence on the roadway consistent with a traffic accident. Some of Erica's items were found in the car, but there was no sign of her whereabouts. The police stated there was no indication of foul play
I'll bet the
up
goal is
until
the
the
same.
car was found.
Get the light back to the source.
According to Erica's sister-in-law, Jenna, Erica was very stressed about the pandemic and the quarantine, and she was going camping for a few days to sort of unplug, despite the fact that she was not an experienced camper. The most accurate information about Erica's disappearance can be found on
Kenny
the
and I don't need
Erica
to fight about the
Facebook
laundry,
page.
so instead we
The
fight
following
about
is an excerpt from a
inventorability
comment
and
written by
restrictions on
Erica's
machine
mom.
intelligence.
There have been many stories of Erica from various podcasts and in the forum world, which are filled with a lot of opinions, theories, and conjectures. The information that they provide almost never comes from police investigators handling Erica's case to verify or corroborate their info. We know that Erica was not in a good state of mind and decided to take this trip to Joshua Tree Park to clear her head. There's been no indication of foul play until her car was found on Shelton Road, broken down, despite what others may say or think. We received 6 sightings of apparently homeless or transient women fitting Erica's description in the high desert area, but none of them turned out to be her. Some of what was done to find Erica, the research teams from the Sheriff's Department that continued to search further and further out from the location of her car. Doug Billings, an expert in mapping and a cave diver, has extensive knowledge of mines in the area. He's done numerous searches with the help of his friends. Family members and other groups have aided in the searching. Banners and a billboard were placed in strategic locations in the Wonder Valley area, asking if anyone helped Erica on June 16. Erica's aunt have sent out hundreds of flyers to homeless shelters, hospitals, and food banks in areas such as 29 Palms, Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley, Palm Springs, Desert Springs, Indio, Coachella, Riverside, Morongo Basin, Ontario, Los Angeles, San Diego, Venice Beach, and more. Erica's mom further states, "We're continuing to look at offbeat communes like Slab City and Amboy." Both police investigators from San Bernardino Sheriff's Department and Walnut Creek Police Department are still actively investigating the case. The case remained active after Erica's disappearance, with no real leads until January of 2021. In February of 2021, Erica's brother posted to the Facebook page saying, "As the brother of Erica Lloyd, I would like to address the public on behalf of our family." On January 31st, 2021, human remains were discovered by hikers in the vicinity of Danby Road and Amboy Road in Wonder Valley, California. It is with a heavy heart announced that these remains have been identified by San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department as my sister, Erica. There is no easy way for me to tell you all this, and there's no easy way for any of us to receive it. My wish is that we can all lean in a little closer, hold each other up, and remind each other more often that we're here for one another with open arms and endless love. It's what she would have wanted. It's the spirit of who she was. On May 12, 2021, Erica's family shared another post on the Bring Erica Home Facebook page. Quoting here, "The family of Erica Lloyd would like to give an update. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department Special Investigative Unit has notified us they are no longer handling Erica's case. After reviewing the extensive investigation done on Erica's disappearance, they have not found any indication of foul play. Thus, Erica's case will be turned back over to the Morongo Basin Station investigators for any remaining follow-up and information. From everything the investigators learned, and everything we found out from our first trip to California in June to our last trip in February, all indications appeared Erica suffered a sudden mental breakdown starting about a week before she disappeared into the desert. During that last week, Erica had communicated with various family members, friends, co-workers, and some clients. The common thread from all of them referring to Erica was that something was off and out of place, but they could not put their finger on it. One co-worker was so concerned about Erica on June 10th, 6 days before she went missing, that she dropped by Erica's apartment to check up on her and spent a couple of hours talking to her. It was the following day when Erica took off on her road trip. It has been hard to understand how Erica, who was a free spirit, hardworking, and an independent, loving mom, could suffer a sudden mental psychotic breakdown. Psychosis means losing touch with reality, is often associated with various serious mental illnesses. The stress becomes too overwhelming. Anyone may experience these symptoms triggering a breakdown. Erica was dealing with a lockdown, learning to take care of her son in the new stay-in-place world, a forced shutdown of her thriving Bloom hair studio in Alamo, California, losing personal contact with the clients whose weddings and proms were canceled, and trying to make some sense to understand where our society was going. This was overwhelming to her and pushed her over the edge and into a break. Erica was no longer in control, and the voices she heard had taken over her thoughts. As a family, we are heartbroken over losing our Erica. It is difficult to understand what struggles her mind was going through the last week of her life. We know there were possibly missed opportunities to stop and help Erica before she slipped away and wandered out into the desert. At this point, it's unknown if any person or persons could have made a difference in stopping or helping her. We accept what happened to Erica and know she was in the storm of her life. Joshua Tree National Park has a mystical appeal, and is said to be located on a powerful energy vortex, and Erica was drawn to this place. Unfortunately, as beautiful as the desert is, the heat is brutal and harsh during the day and cold at night. We know that prior and during this time, Erica was seeking the Lord, looking for peace and happiness in her life. While working with the investigators and searchers, early on we knew there were three main possibilities of what could have happened to Erica. All were closely looked at, but sadly on June 16, 2020, Erica was running. It was hot. She was scared, dehydrated, and not in touch with reality. She wandered into the desert and succumbed to the elements. We know Erica is at peace now. Because of Erica's faith in God, He has a bigger plan for her which gives us hope. This is our hope. The Lord Jesus Christ brought Erica home. End quote. Any updates that the family wishes to share in the future will be posted on the Facebook page titled Bring Erica Home. Now, on a lighter note, not everybody that goes missing in Joshua Tree perishes. Here are some amazing true stories of survival. Claire Nelson, 36-year-old Claire Nelson, nearly died alone in the desert in May of 2018. Claire, originally from New Zealand, was visiting friends who lived near Joshua Tree National Park, where she was to house sit for them while they left for vacation. During her stay, Claire planned on adventuring through the desert and connecting with nature. Claire was experienced in the outdoors, and she was a fiercely independent person, so much so that she had been pushing people away for some time. But she loved exploring and also sharing her travel experiences online. She was a freelance travel writer at the time of the Joshua Tree visit that changed her life forever. After her friends left for their journey to Scotland, Claire was on to her own adventures. She left for a day hike to Joshua Tree, planning to explore the Lost Palms Oasis Trail. However, Claire hadn't told anybody specifically where she was going, only that she planned on exploring inside Joshua Tree. It started out as a day like any other. Claire packed a day bag with a spare t-shirt, several liters of water, and a meager lunch. A hard-boiled egg, a bagel, and a chocolate bar. She also carried other items that were usually not essential for just a few hours outdoors, but later proved life-saving. A plastic bag, a bandana, a park map, and sunscreen. With her day pack in place, Claire drove to Joshua Tree and parked. It was hot, but Claire was confident and enjoyed herself in the beauty of the desert. She was ways into her hike when she unknowingly wandered off the designated trail and began following a dry riverbed, and there was a boulder she had to climb on the path she was traveling. She climbed up, then began testing her footing. Everything seemed okay until her foot started slipping and she became unsteady. She lost her balance completely and went crashing over 26 feet down into a clearing not much bigger than she was, shattered her pelvis in the process. The fall knocked the breath out of her, and the pain was excruciating and unrelenting. Claire recalled, "I'd landed amongst these large boulders, and I couldn't move. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't stand up. It was indescribably painful." Unable to move, Claire immediately tried using her cell phone to call for help, but she had no service. The predicament she was in was life-threatening, indeed. She was all alone in the desert with a shattered pelvis, barely enough water for a day and a half, and contending with the California desert heat, as well as unusually high numbers of coyote, rattlesnakes, and other dangers. "I felt more vulnerable than I could ever have imagined being in my life," Claire said in the ordeal. She immediately began recording videos of herself, messages to friends and family, as well as documentation of her situation. Claire occasionally tried to move, especially to find shade, but when she tried, there was a crunching, clicking sound coming from her pelvic region, along with searing, mind-numbing pain. She couldn't budge. She was ashamed to admit it, but this hike was not the first time she'd left for an adventure without telling someone of her plans. "I know better. I know the rules. Always tell someone where you're going," said Claire, who wrote about her experience in her book, Things I Learned from Falling. The reality of her situation set in, and Claire really didn't want to spend the night alone on the desert floor but she had no other option. Nobody knew to check in with her or expect her back at a certain time. The fact that she might die out there alone was not lost on Claire. She kept recording videos, then turning her phone and digital camera off to conserve the battery life. She made herself eat the hard-boiled eggs since it would go bad anyway, and she knew she needed the protein if she was going to survive this tragedy. Her determination and will to live kicked in, however, and Claire prepared herself for the nighttime. After nightfall, there were bats flying around, and Claire hoped they weren't the kind that liked to bite people. Her imagination went wild, and she was sure at times that she was seeing snakes coming out of the rocks, though in reality, snakes rarely come out at night. Thankfully, she survived until morning. One night in the desert, alone and injured.
Goddamn, what the fuck?
Only 2 more to go. Claire tried her best to protect herself from the elements. She used a stick to rub sunscreen on her legs. The sun is unforgiving during the desert summers and can quickly do significant damage to her skin, as well as dehydrate us even faster.
Let's do it.
She rationed what was left of her food and water as long as she could, but neither lasted very long. The lack of water grew unbearable. Dehydration is a god-awful business, Claire wrote in her book. It starts in the mouth, the initial pang of craving quite subtle and easy to ignore, but the signals get more insistent. Over time, your tongue becomes increasingly dry and scratchy, thickening like a woolen mitten, sticking against the sides of your mouth like Velcro. From there, you feel it in your head. A slowly increasing pressure throbs inside your skull, as if your brain is shrinking in on itself, withering like a piece of dried fruit. She fantasized about Diet Coke and other cold refreshments, even willing them to be real. Claire had no choice once her water ran out. She even urinated in a bottle and drank it for hydration. While unpleasant, at least it helped keep her alive. She used the park map, the bandana, and the plastic bag, which she attached to a stick, to cover herself and block out the sun. Claire continued applying sunscreen, recycling her urine, and making videos. There was nothing else she could do. She was trapped in the middle of the desert, with no way of knowing whether anyone was searching. She battled the scorching heat on the second day and dreaded nightfall. She didn't want to spend another night alone in the desert. Naturally, she hadn't slept, and delirium was setting in. She made it through the night with sheer willpower and determination. On the third day, Claire's mind was really playing tricks on her. She thought she heard helicopters and ambulances, but it was all in her head. She could see birds of prey circling overhead, waiting for her to die so they could grab an easy meal. However, after a couple of days of social media silence, the friends Claire was house sitting for grew concerned. It wasn't like her not to post, especially when she was somewhere beautiful like Joshua Tree. They contacted friends in the area and had them go to the house to check for Claire. When they didn't see her car or find her at the home, Claire was reported missing. Joshua Tree National Park officials found her car, and there were at least 2 days of chalk marks, which are used to tell whether or not a vehicle has been moved. It was clear that Claire had left the car and not come back for quite some time. The search and rescue mission was launched. The searchers started where her car was found and working outwards. They made several rounds on a helicopter near where Claire had fallen, but they didn't find her first. After all, she was trapped between large boulders where it was difficult to see. They called out over the helicopter's PA system, "We are looking for a missing hiker. If you can hear us, please make movement." The search crew didn't know it, but Claire was screaming for help as she heard the helicopter. And it was real this time. She tied the plastic bag on the end of her stick with a hair tie and began waving frantically. It wasn't until their last and final sweep of the area that they saw, tiny and obscure, a plastic grocery bag waving back and forth. They called out that they could see her and told her that help was on the way. Due to the terrain, the helicopter couldn't land in the area, so rescuers had to hike into where she was at to save her. Claire knew at that point that she was going to be okay. After 3 nights and 4 days alone in the desert, Claire was rushed to a hospital where she received emergency surgery. Thankfully, she made it through okay and spent the next several months recuperating. She had to do extensive rehabilitation and spend some time in a wheelchair before she was able to learn to walk again. During her time in that awful situation, Claire realized that she'd been pushing people away. And although she was connecting with others in social media, there was a lack of true human connection in her life. She made the decision that if she lived through this ordeal, she was going to do better for herself and for others. Claire triumphantly returned to Joshua Tree a year later with friends and finally finished the hike she had started that almost ended her life. Today, Claire is thankful to be alive, and she vowed to never forget what happened to her and to use it as motivation. Her book, Things I Learned from Falling, can be found on Amazon. Next up in our survivors, Holly Jokum. 32-year-old Holly Jokum was planning a camping trip on December 27, 2020, to Big Bear Campground in California. She packed her things and loaded her 2 dogs into her RV. As she drove to Big Bear, she was excited for the trip, but unfortunately, when she arrived, she found the campsite was closed. Around 4:45 p.m. that day, she contacted family and told them about a change of plans. She was going to drive an hour and 15 minutes away to camp in the desert at Joshua Tree instead. She called when she arrived. But by 7:30 that evening, Holly's phone was off, and her family hadn't heard from her. They were rightfully concerned and contacted his authorities. They filed a missing person report and began reaching out on social media for help locating Holly. Her sister Lori made a post asking for anyone who might have seen Holly to please come forward. Holly had randomly selected a campsite at Joshua Tree from her phone. Although she was an experienced camper, the site she chose was unfamiliar to her. On the way to the site, the terrain had become difficult, and she decided to camp out in a secluded area until the next day. The night came and went, and the next morning, Holly woke to find 2 feet of snow had fallen. Holly wrote about the ordeal. By Tuesday, there was nearly 2 feet of very fine fresh powder, and I was stunned. There was also no cell service where she had parked, so she and her 2 dogs were truly out there alone. For 3 days, Holly and the dogs camped out, waiting for the snow to melt, but that never happened. Holly decided she had to do something. Friday morning, she planned on hiking back down the mountain, at least until she had cell service. The snow was too deep for her dogs, so she loaded them into 2 separate backpacks and began the 6-mile hike back down. Eventually, she reached the police and headphone service, and she called in her location to her mom and the authorities. Search teams had been looking for her, and news of her safety was cause for celebration. Holly met the sheriff at the bottom of the mountain, who drove her to Tucson, where she met with her mother. Thankfully, neither Holly nor her dogs were harmed during their time stuck on the mountain, and they had a happy ending, unlike so many others who come missing. Holly wrote, "I'm so thankful for everyone who was involved in searching for me, for everyone who shared the missing persons post, and mostly for my family, who tried with every ounce they had to bring me back. The experiences should remind Holly, as well as the rest of us, of the dangers of the wilderness, and just how quickly things can change from one person to another." And our last survivor, Robert Ringo. 67-year-old Robert Ringo was on a day hike one Thursday in June of 2020 near Quail Mountain in Joshua Tree National Park when tragedy struck. Robert had gotten ready that morning with nothing out of the ordinary. He drove to Joshua Tree and once parked shared his location with his son, something he always did. He brought along 2 liters of water for the hike, but not much more in the way of supplies. The temperatures are in the high 90s. Desert heat was sweltering. Robert is an avid hiker and used to these conditions, so he wasn't worried, especially since he was only planning a short hike. He felt good starting out on this walk, but when he's into the hike, while admiring the views and enjoying the outdoors, Robert somehow lost his footing and fell to the ground, breaking his left femur. The area he was in had no cell service, so he was stranded after his fall. I started trying to at least turn over, and when I did, he said, it was just unbelievable pain. Robert began recording himself since he had no way of signaling for help. His past can be heard in the videos shared with news media. Robert knew his 2 liters of water wouldn't last for long. He tried to at least get himself onto his back and finally managed. After some time lying there, he knew he had to eat something to keep his energy up. I somehow screwed up this place, ate some juniper berries, and saw what I thought might be flowers, but they were all dry, so I wasn't going to eat them, he said. He continued recording videos and tried to conserve water. This is the first time I've experienced no saliva, he said in all the videos he took. He knew if he could just hold on long enough, someone would be looking for him. He mentions having the confidence and a faith that he was going to survive. The next day, Friday, Robert's son Ryan alerted officials of his father's missing status. He saw on his phone that his last known location was Joshua Tree. Search and rescue efforts began searching in earnest for Robert, knowing the summer heat is dangerous to beings with only limited bodies alive. Time was of the essence. Rescue teams searched for hours, but to no avail. It wasn't until Saturday morning, nearly 2 days after Robert had taken his fall, that he finally heard a rescue copter. The Joshua Tree search and rescue team retrieved Robert and brought him to the Desert Regional Medical Center. Robert had emergency surgery on his leg and later made a full recovery. In closing, things like we've covered in this video that continue to happen daily, with our national parks being hotspots for all manner of strange occurrences. Some of them natural, some of them bordering on the supernatural and beyond. While there could be any number of things or combination of things to blame for these cases, one thing is certain: we can never be sure something won't happen to us. It's recommended that everyone who plans on being within our national parks or out in the wilderness in general carry a personal locator beacon at all times. This beacon transmits a distress signal with its location when activated. So what do you think is happening in Joshua Tree? Let us know in the comment section. And if we've earned your subscription, we appreciate it. Please hit the red button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any new content or case updates. I look forward to your comments, but ask that you please keep them friendly and respectful. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you just a little farther on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.
A woman disappeared last year, and she was gone for 5 days. And she was interviewed by a physician and told the physician that when she was in the woods, there were strange little people that were looking at her hiding behind bushes. And when she asked them for help, they wouldn't talk to her, and they wouldn't come out of the bush, and they tried to conceal themselves. Along the Appalachian Trail, there have been similar stories where a woman was chased on the Appalachian Trail by men that she could hear, sometimes see, but ran for 2 weeks trying to stay away from them. So there are these small little quips about what happened that kind of give you an insight as to what these people say happened. But the reality is that there's never enough there to really say with a surety what transpired.
A common tale among all the indigenous native people, seemingly throughout the world, stories of little people abound. The Irish have their leprechauns, the Nordic folk have their gnomes and elves, and many other societies and cultures share similar folk legends and stories. The Cherokee, in particular, have a huge wealth of myths and legends, some of which go back not just centuries, but thousands, perhaps even tens of thousands of years, to when the planet was formed, and how all the different systems of nature on our planet Earth work. The ancient Cherokee, whom, as far as is known, were the first people to inhabit the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. They have a legend or a story for everything you can imagine. Animals, insects, plants, trees, flowers, herbs, mountains, creeks, lakes, rivers, etc., ad infinitum. The rich oral tradition of the Cherokee people have ensured that these tales are passed down from generation to generation. Even
I get this shit.
High technology,
No.
there are initiatives underway to make sure that all the Cherokee legends and stories are recorded for posterity. One of the most fascinating and eerie stories in the Cherokee Legend Repository are the various and numerous accounts of what the Cherokee people call the Yunwe Sunzi, which roughly translates into English as the little people. In the stories of old, and even into modern day, these entities are sometimes described as being from the ethereal plane, but other times the Cherokee consider them to be a small, human-like race of people, about 2 to 4 feet high. Some versions of the Cherokee legend even have the little people initially arriving in the area aboard a flying silver disc. So perhaps the little people of the Smokies are actually little men from Mars? These little people of legend are also believed to be shapeshifters of a sort, and use this to their advantage when deciding on what form to assume. According to the Cherokee legends, each of these little people can morph into 3 or 4 different types of spirits or entities. While sometimes the little people can be helpful, it seems they are especially good at finding lost articles if applied with certain foods or drinks as a reward, seeming to give preference to small children and the very old and or infirm. These self-same little folk can turn mean and dangerous at the drop of a hat if they are disrespected, like their space has been intruded upon. Oddly enough, like the little men that Rip Van Winkle came across playing tin pins in the forest, the little people of the Great Smoky Mountains are said to possess the very power to cloud the human mind, resulting in confusion. There are even those among the Cherokee tribe who believe that this is why people are at risk of going missing in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. You've upset the little people and will be allowed to wander the wilderness for your transgressions against them. A rather chilling thought, isn't it? Said to have the aforementioned ability to disguise themselves in a number of ways, the little people have the ability to remain invisible and undetected in general, unless surprised by the appearance of a human, for example. There are times, however, that they can and do choose to reveal themselves to the populace at large. When this happens, there's usually not a single sighting, but a sudden flammable wave of sightings over a short period of time, which then subsides. Some people claim that these mass sightings only occur every generation or so. Then the little people, satisfied that they have scared and confused the humans, go back into hiding and enjoy their peaceful mountain ways. It is also said in the stories and legends that the little people live as close to nature as possible, which would explain their fondness for such beautiful wilderness as we see amongst the mountaintops and streams within the Great Smoky Mountains. They seem to be very spiritual beings by nature, and even when they do attempt to teach humans a lesson, the lesson will contain certain aspects or traits they feel we need as a people. Respect, kindness, and above all, the joy for life and living. When the little people are spotted by humans, it usually seems to be because they are so enraptured with the activity that they are involved in at the time. Some common examples of sightings of little people have them involved in dancing, singing, or some form of drumming or otherwise making nature music. While there is no one particular place that is better than any other to spot the little people in the Great Smoky Mountains, the areas with the most untamed nature seem like a best bet. Gates Cove, the north shore of Fontana Lake, the deep woods near Elkmont, LeConte, and Clevelandstone. Interestingly enough, these areas are also purported to be among the most haunted within the national park, and also places where people have gone missing. Perhaps the spirits of the natural and the spirits of the supernatural both walk hand in hand among the dark forests and quiet glens of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. If you do happen to be one of the few who are fortunate enough to spot the little folk, remember to keep your distance and do not approach them, lest you be mesmerized and left to wander about the mountains, perhaps forever. Reverence and respect should always keep you safe. While this may sound tongue-in-cheek to our modern ways and means, the Cherokee did, and still do, take the cautionary tales very seriously, sometimes avoiding certain places in the mountains altogether. Hello, friends. Now, it's often said that flying is the safest way to travel. While plane crashes are often highlighted by the media, the occurrence is extremely rare. In fact, statistics suggest that you're more likely to die driving to the airport than flying across the country. According to a recent Huffington Post article, the past 10 years have been the best in the country's aviation history, with only 153 fatalities. To put this statistic into perspective, the Associated Press determined it is equivalent to 2 deaths for each 100 million passengers flying commercially. Compare that tiny fraction with the 300,000 plus deaths from motor vehicles that take place each year. With all this being said, it should come as no surprise that when an accident or crash does happen involving any form of commercial aircraft, people want answers as to what went wrong. On Christmas Eve, 1975, one particular plane, a Cessna, piloted by a man named Peter Gibbs, departed from an airfield adjacent to the Glen Forsa Hotel on the Isle of Mull in Scotland, and has left us with many perplexing, not to mention troubling questions that have yet to be answered. This story has come to be known as the Great Mull Air Mystery. Peter Gibbs' almost lifelong passion for flying began right around the end of the Second World War. The 55-year-old businessman had forged a reputation in property development as the managing director of Gibbs & Ray. After spending the day working on an investment in a hotel on the Isle of Skye, Peter Gibbs sat down for dinner in the restaurant of the Glen Forsa Hotel. After he had eaten, he suddenly decided he wanted to take his plane out for a quick night flight. Peter Gibbs was a driven man with a no-nonsense reputation, and when the hotel staff tried to warn him that this would be a bad idea, mainly due to a ban on night flights in the area, and also there would be no landing lights for him to use as a guide when coming back down, he reminded them that he wasn't asking for their permission and could do as he very well pleased with his own plane. Even the black and moonless sky that night was no deterrent to him. After all, he considered, he would station his girlfriend, Felicity Granger, on the airstrip with a flashlight, and he insisted this would be enough light to provide him with a visual reference. What could go wrong? It was 9:30 p.m. when the couple headed for the airstrip. A hotel guest named David Howard was there that night and witnessed what he would later describe as a perfect takeoff. He said he hadn't detected any signs of a malfunction or other problems. Felicity waited for approximately half an hour before returning inside and telling the hotel staff that Peter had not returned. Sleet was now falling heavily, which made visibility extremely poor, especially for flying in a small plane. The hotel staff called in the local police. When the authorities arrived on the scene, they inspected the airfield for any signs of trouble that could account for the disappearance. They found nothing unusual, however. The presumed flight path also failed to give them any hint of a problem. Due to the weather, which was only getting worse for the second, before they could even start an official search for Peter Gibbs, the decision was made to call off that search for the rest of the night. The very next morning, Christmas Day of 1975, a full-scale investigation was launched into what could have possibly happened to Peter Gibbs after he made his completely flawless takeoff from the airstrip the night before. He still had to turn. While RAF and Navy Air Service helicopters scoured the waters with sonar, hundreds of volunteers searched virtually the entire island on foot. Neither Peter Gibbs nor the aircraft could be found. For the next 4 months, speculation was rife as to his true fate. Confusion and mystery ended the following April when local shepherd Donald McKinnon replaced one question with several more. On a hill about a mile from the Glen Forsa Hotel, he discovered the fully clothed body of Peter Gibbs. It was located about 400 feet from the base of the hill. He was in full view of anyone who might have ventured onto the hill. This was really puzzling, as the hill was part of the first search of many searches thereafter, and nobody had obviously come across this body or any scrap of evidence there before. The only injury to the body was a minor cut on one of his legs. Keep in mind, too, that this hill, where his body was eventually found, was a place where shepherds roamed daily, and nobody had seen him up there until this point. There was also another question about how Peter Gibbs could have ended up where he did. If we are to assume that the plane did crash into the sea, he'd have had to swim to shore, climb up a sheer cliff face, cross the road that led to the hotel, then head a quarter of a mile uphill only to lie down and suffer the effects of exposure. And as improbable as all of that sounds, there was no trace of seawater or marine microorganisms found on his skin or his clothes. Some people even speculated that Peter Gibbs left the aircraft in flight somehow. Though his body showed no signs of major trauma, they believed that he may have bailed out on his own accord for some reason. Perhaps, they speculated, the plane developed a fault during the flight. However, there was no signs of a parachute anywhere near the flight. If he did parachute out of the Cessna, then what became of the parachute? It doesn't seem reasonable that he would go out of his way to conceal a parachute and then return to the hill to lie down and die. Plus, a parachute was never found anywhere near the area all this took place. Also, why hadn't he sought help, or at the very least, found his girl?
Hello.
Good morning. What time are you coming over here?
I'm not. I'm at the county law.
Kind of explanation.
I got a doctor's appointment at 12 o'clock.
None of this made any kind of
Where you
sense. And the
Who was you gonna say
investigators no
something?
further
Huh?
any clues or answers to
What
all
was you
those
gonna
questions.
say something?
I'm getting ready to call you. Where you at?
Any questions on everyone else's mind, though, what
Oh,
happened to the aircraft itself? What was it
I just found out.
Now at the bottom of the ocean somewhere.
I just found out I had power, bro.
Very likely, considering the lack of parachute and
I'm sick of this shit. I just got up. I got ready to go.
Either had even been
I'm ready.
at sea.
I'm ready to come early tomorrow.
Years later, in September of 1986,
If you're a buckle, I'm gonna slow as shit.
at least the plane would be found when a pair of brothers named Richard and John Cream were out
I'm on
camping.
holiday. This is the bus free
They
walk.
came forward and said that they found a small red and white plane
Let you
about
come get
100
me.
feet down on a seabed, a kilometer or so off the coast of
Well, I
Oregon.
need that.
According to the brothers, it had the registration number G-ABTN, and as best as they could tell, the cockpit was empty. Both insisted that the wings had been sheared off and the condition of the plane was severe. The hole was found in the windshield and one of the wheels had been ripped from its housing. The engine was found a short distance from the fuselage.
Wait, the what?
The entire scene strongly indicated the plane crash had been a very
I got
violent
baby food in the house.
Both
Yeah, I got some,
inside.
man.
The only way out was right a hole in the windscreen. The salvage team's rudder was discovered. They set out to
Oh, I got it, sir. I'll bring you, sir,
Unfortunately,
tomorrow.
they were unable to find it.
You
The
got
only
bad
evidence
guys?
that the brothers had indeed found it at all was some blurry photos.
They got waffles. They got all that.
However,
Oh, I need some, sir. Oh, I appreciate you, sir. Just remind me when I call you tomorrow. To bring the sir. So I won't forget.
There have been many theories.
We trying to get over there early.
What could possibly happen to Peter Gibbs? One idea was that Peter was actually murdered.
Alright.
This theory
Sure, I'll put everything together for
someone
tomorrow.
else conceal him or herself on board the plane.
I really look forward to it.
Peter Gibbs included knowing about it.
Alright.
Alright.
During or shortly after this textbook perfect takeoff, the killer struck. Having done the deed, the killer then faced the problem of disposing of the body. The obvious solution? Simply open the door and let gravity take care of it. Somehow, though, the perpetrator would have had to accomplish this without causing any additional harm to the corpse. Not very likely. It's also highly unlikely because the area where the body was found was highly traveled by the locals in the area. There were also the aforementioned